Welcome to the Hobby Jogger Podcast, where elite athletes and ham and eggers lace up their stories. We explore the common ground that running creates, from the world-class runner to the hobbyist hitting the pavement, trail, or treadmill. Expect a blend of inspiration, laughter, and the shared joy that makes every step count. Join us on this journey where every run is a story worth sharing. Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Hobby Jogger. We got a great episode in store for you. I'm once again joined by my co-host with the most, Mr. Rob Myers. Rob, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Excited to talk to the RDs of one of my favorite races.
My favorite race for sure. Also, how's the ankle from the 50K?
It's doing better. I've gone out for a couple short ones, so I don't think there's any real damage, but a little sore.
Glad to hear that. Glad to hear that you recovered. That's a big part of what we do here in the ultra scene. But yes, we do have two race directors, two race organizers. I don't know what to call them. They are the hosts of my favorite race, Laurel Highlands Ultra, which has a 50K, 70-mile, and a relay. Also a host of other races. They have a company, Redpoint Productions. Hopefully I got that right. That's coming off of memory, but I am joined by Dan and Jim of Redpoint Productions. How you doing?
Good. What's up, guys?
All right. Good to be with you guys.
Good for you guys to be here. We certainly appreciate it and look forward to getting into what it takes to actually run a race. I've been trying to get a couple race directors on before. I know super busy, but I think it's an interesting story because I know I hear complaining to race directors all the time about things that are likely out of their control. I never complain because I don't want to do the job. And if I don't want to do the job, I never complain about it.
Well, that's not 100% true, Casey. I think on the last episode, you did fill out a survey and did a little bit of complaining.
I did. I did. Okay, so I was upset that
it was justified. I'm not questioning it.
The race that we ran had a food truck, and the food truck was corn dogs. I felt a little bit uninspired. Yes, but I wasn't complaining as much as maybe giving them a little bit of feedback is what I was doing.
Fair.
Yeah. Feedback's always good, right?
Constructive criticism.
Yes.
$10 hot dogs or $10 corn dogs are probably not the best at the end of a very expensive race.
Yeah. But we're not complaining.
No, not at all.
No, that's just making it better for everyone, I think, at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's all I'm trying to do. Make the experience better for them, for me, especially for me, mostly for me. But I digress. Welcome to the show. Thanks again so much for joining us. Laurel Highlands Ultra is, I think, that's probably what you're most known for at Redpoint Productions.
That's correct. Yeah, for sure. We were able to take over the reins in the fantastic year of 2020. We were passed off the reins in late 2019 after 40 years, So it's definitely our most well-known race at this point, and we're super happy to be a part of the community and have the ability to keep that race alive.
Now, I think that's an important thing that I'd like to go into a little more detail about, of how you take over a race, because that is a very old, I don't want to say it's hyper local because it's definitely nationally known, but it was such a highly regarded race. And when you say take over, I imagine after 40 years, they were likely looking for someone to succeed them in taking it over.
So, when it began, it was started by a couple of brothers who owned it for 20 years. And then a husband and wife and a friend took over for another 20 years. And then, after those 20 years, they were ready to start to step aside. Absolutely. We were really excited to be a part of the conversation, but a little daunting, right? To take over a race 40 years old, to start to consider how do you maintain the historicity of something like that while, making it current and accessible and bringing our own personal flair to the event. That is definitely not a struggle, but a lot of consideration going into that.
Yeah, because I think there's a certain feeling right now when we hear of taking over a race, like, oh no, this big company came in and just bought up the race. But the reality of things are people get older, people move on with things in life. And if we want these cool things to continue, somebody does need to step up and put the time in. And I know for all the races that you run, they're very time consuming.
Yeah, for sure. That's the nature of the sport, right? We do our own production ultras every time we put people on the trail, for sure. Yeah, and I think that the language is always tricky because you're trying to portray what taking over the reins looks like as opposed to the purchase of an event or something like that. And the reality of is, especially with Laurel, it just took a few years. It took a few years of us being in the community. It took a few years of us getting on the trail and running with people, and people beginning to trust that we weren't just going to come in there. You know, a little bit of hindsight, taking a look at the fact that the name of the company, Redpoint Productions, was dropped on it as the new race directing entity. You know, might have put us a little further back in the building community thing than if it had just been Dan, Jim, and Vinny, because that's really what it was at the end of the day. You know, it was three individuals with unique kind of connection and history in ultra running and in the community. Jim lived out there for 15 years prior to this. So yeah, so hindsight, thinking about that, maybe being a little careful about how it was portrayed would have helped a little. But at the end of the day, like it's really nice to be on the other side of connecting with people, understanding what the community is, what they want from the race, and then being able to just be out there and year after year seeing, you know, more and more familiar faces is that's where it gets to be really fun.
Yeah, it certainly feels that race in particular of the ones I've gone and done has a very community vibe to it, very local. People do come from out of state, from all over the place to run it, but it does seem very localized, and that it is a very important part of that community. We had Bryn Cunningham on, who I know you know Bryn, but you know, she talked glowingly about how much that means to that area, just, you know, how cool it is and something different. And I know, I mean, since I was a kid, at least I knew about the race, you know, that these people run 70 miles down this, you know, the Laurel Highlands Trail. We all knew the Laurel Highlands Trail, you know, growing up around there. So yeah, big part of the community, and glad that the three of you were able to take it over. And yeah, hey, you learn from your mistakes of how, I guess, when you came in, of, you know, how to present things, because the perception of things certainly does matter to people, especially in the trail running community, as we've definitely learned over the years, huh, Rob?
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's like any other business. Or what's the alternative? If you're a local and it's something you love, a race, a business, your favorite pizza shop down the street, you know, the owners get old, they want to sell it to somebody else that's going to breathe new life into it. And the alternative is it goes away, right? So I think if people are honest with themselves, the locals in the community, and really think about it, I mean, it's a good thing to pass the baton. You're going to hold on to it for a long time and just make it better. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think it's the unknown that made people nervous, right? Like they didn't know what to expect when Redpoint Productions took over. And so, as Dan said, I think it took a couple of years for them to realize, like, yeah, we want to keep it the same. We want to stay, again, with the historicity, the ethos that this race has always had. We understand the love of the trail, you know, that people have, and that's what we want to keep. But it was the unknown. What's going to change? How are they going to manipulate or, you know, adjust the race? We wanted to keep it the same as much as possible.
That makes sense. I mean, you know, we've seen other races kind of go sideways when somebody new takes over. Prices go up, quality goes down. I get that from a running perspective, but I think from local community, really have to take a step back and see what's the alternative, right? The race goes away. Nobody wants that, but I get it. It takes a little bit of time for everyone to get on board and get to know you.
Well, they do have an advantage with price, Rob, because the website is still hosted on angelfire.com.
It's true.
I wasn't going to bring it up.
Yeah, the web hosting costs are very low for Redpoint Productions there, because
It's the green site, you know, everybody knows the green site. That was there's a few things that we were able to kind of, like Jim was saying, kind of update. You know, we brought in porta potties to the aid stations, you know, these are things in response to our corn dog emails. You know, we're responding to what people are asking for, And those things, they make sense without, sacrificing the challenge of the event or anything. But yeah, the green website couldn't go anywhere it's going to stick around for a little bit.
Hey folks, if you're loving the stories, tips, and laughs we're dishing out, make sure you don't miss an episode. Hit that subscribe button so you're the first to know when a new episode drops. And hey, if you've got a second, why not leave us a review? Your feedback helps us improve and keeps this running community growing. Lace up, hit subscribe, and let's get back into the show. That's awesome that you kept it, because that is a relic from, well, I don't know. It might be on Angel Fire. I don't actually know who's hosted it, but it predates GoDaddy, so it's pretty old, I think.
It does.
Yeah, so I mean, that was just awesome that you kept it, because it's kind of a nod to what it's been. And I feel like you've pretty well kept it, the ethos of the race, everything pretty much the same, correct? I mean, yeah, Porta Johns are great. That's good. We like Porta Johns. I don't want to have to, in the middle of the woods. So, but you've basically kept it the same, right?
Yeah. One of the biggest things that we shifted from was the mail-in entry, right? Like when we took over in 2020, people were still sending in paper checks to my house. And I got to say, like, on one hand, I loved it. Like getting all that mail. Who doesn't want to receive mail? But oh my God, the data entry. So moving from mail-in checks to Ultra sign up was a pretty big shift. And there was some pushback. Ultimately, of course, is the right move. I got to say, I miss it a little.
I don't have a check to send you, so.
And that was part of it, right? Through the process, we were like, you sit there, and this is honestly talking in big terms of race directing. This is a lot of it. It's like, we can make this change. We can adapt. We can change an existing thing that's been happening for an event for a little while. But what's kickback going to be? Like, what's the, what are people going to be frustrated that it changed? Like you said, change the ethos, change the tradition, or is it something that's going to, at the end of the day, the decision to stop the mail-in was exactly that. It was like inclusiveness. It's like how many people, and the younger generation of ultra racers have a check to even mail in. And so, or print out a PDF to mail with the check with their application, or, and so we just got to the point where we were like, love the idea, love the nostalgia behind it. And we ended up coming out with this 3-point entry system in the fall. The day that it opens is still unannounced. It's still a surprise. And then we've gone to this, 3-part 70 sign up in honor of the 70 miles of trail, where we do these kind of like spaced out times. So if you work when the race opens during that time and you can't get to a computer, you got another chance to get back on the computer. So we're really trying to encompass a lot of the things that were kind of exclusive, I think, for access for people to get in the race.
And I really like how you do the signups as well, because it is still first. It's not a lottery, so you don't just randomly get drawn, and you certainly have enough people interested in running the race that it's not a problem for you to fill it. But you do evenly, and I believe, if I remember correctly from last year, you even have different times. Like one might open up in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, so that, hey, if you're a nurse that's on, the graveyard shift, you'll still have a chance to enter into this race. Like just because you're at work, there's some time that you could probably enter to get into it, which is another nod to inclusiveness, where, gets more people, a variety of people that work all sorts of different jobs, a chance to enter the race, which is, hats off to you for that. That's an improvement. I'm sure the diehards hated to see the check go, but I would not be running the 50K if I had to send you. I had to go get a stamp, find a check, mail it. Yeah, I'd just be like, we'll find something else to do that day, I guess.
Yeah.
You have so many unique traditions. Has there been a year where you forgot something? Like maybe year 1, year 2, you're like, oh, wait a minute. We forgot to do the one thing that they've always done for the past 20 years.
Remember, the year that we took over was COVID. In-person events were changing drastically. So we took over a really old event that we wanted to keep the same. And all of a sudden, everything had to change.
Staggered starts, everything, it was like, it blew it up. It was like, so it was a little bit of a balance, right? It was to our advantage to a certain extent, because we were changing a few things, but not a lot. But we were like, we have to do it because of COVID, which is true for most of the changes we made. I think the first 2 years were hard. We weren't able to do the pre-race dinner. and packet pickup, and that was like always a tradition with this event on Friday night. And so that was kind of a bummer. We missed those opportunities those first 2 years to kind of connect with people and have, just have people out that were coming in from out of town and things like that. But been able to get back to that, which has been a lot of fun. And this past year, we were able to do like a small ceremony with past race directors and some aid station workers that have been around for, a decade or two. And just kind of like, we were never able to do anything to kind of honor the pass off, So that was pretty cool. It's 45th anniversary, and we had a good time with that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it was funny that when we came out there and ran the relay the first year, my girlfriend had only been to like big marathons. So, I was telling her, like, hyping out, I was like, yeah, this is a really big ultra that they run, and tons of people do this. And we get there and she's like, this is the starting line?
Yeah, you and 4 other people.
Yeah, it's these guys just kind of say go and that's it. Like,
yeah. And there was really no hype too. We asked people to come get your packet and then return to your car until your start time. Like, we were really working hard to prevent any mass gatherings.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit of a buzzkill for sure.
But I don't know, that's part of what makes the race so endearing to me is just the low key, well, the trail, but then like the low keyness of it. And how does that compare to some of your other events that you guys run? Do you guys try and keep it, or do you, I guess, do different things at different races?
Yeah, the other races are all areas that I've been, and Jim's been involved, like putting on races for the past 15 years or so. So way back in the day, to put a little history to all of this, and in my history, worked with North Face ECS, RIP. And so we used to do a lot of races for them. So Bear Mountain, where Suffering Bear is hosted, is one of those spaces where helped design the course there and direct the course for years. So it was kind of when COVID came around and that event wasn't happening anymore, it was like kind of intuitive for the local trails that I spent a lot of time on running and training to become a space where we could put on an ultra. Staten Island, similar situation. Spent a lot of time there during COVID, hiking with the dog and the kids, and just kind of getting out and spending time on the trail when we weren't really allowed to go anywhere else. And so my wheels were just turning that whole time, just seeing different areas, different places we could go and how to patch it all together. And then Wawayanda, which is where our Wawayanda Trail Fest is, that was my first ever race directed event. Was an adventure race on the back end of Eco Challenge in the late 2000s, and I directed an event there, and then I'd always wanted to get back, and it just took a little bit of time to get back there. So, and COVID, post COVID bump.
So other than Laurel Highlands, what's your second favorite race? Because I've only run Laurel, so you have to recommend.
All right, fair. Well, we got the Fall Classic coming, so I don't know. That might quickly take a second place. New York City, the NYC Trail Mix is really super unique. It's the similar conversation every time I say something to somebody, like, there's trails there, and you're like, yup, and then they're like 35 miles of trail. They're like, can't be a lot. And you're like, actually, there's a decent amount. So it's kind of the contrast of actually being in New York City proper, and then to also feeling like at many moments like you're in the middle of the woods. You can't see houses even in the November race, and we're doing a loop course on that because there is a limited amount of trails you can find without too many street crossings. But it's really unique. It's a good vibe. It's fun. It's a fun space, and we got shuttles coming from ferries from Manhattan. We got like multi-mode transportation, which is rare in the ultra world, right? Like accessing getting to trailheads where races are held is really hard. And we have the capacity to get there by public transportation with a little help of some shuttles. It's I think that's probably my number 2 right now.
What time of year is that race?
That's November 16th this year, mid-November. Yep, coming. It's 2 weeks after the marathon. So we've had a few racers. Last year was the inaugural year, and we had a few racers who used the New York City Marathon as a very expensive tune-up for the 50 miler.
Yeah, that's a pricey tune-up, I think.
Yeah, a little bit.
So it's all about vibes, It's all about vibes.
Yeah, I mean, there's some hills on those bridges that I've talked about. Bridges are not flat.
Yeah, for sure.
Growing up in Pittsburgh, I definitely learned that. But yeah, very cool, very wide range of races that you run. You also do a triathlon.
Yeah, that was also one of my first races I ever did when they were big. getting into race directing was really interesting. I'm one of the few, I think. There's a few of us around. There's a full-time race director. It's a rare niche within this ultra endurance world. But I've been doing it for a long time. So triathlon and obstacle course running is, plateaued to a certain degree, and so there's not as many opportunities out there. And I'm really happy to be spending more time on the trails doing ultras, which is what I like to do. So that works.
Good. And we're definitely happy to have you organizing these, still paying respect to how they used to be and modernizing them, ultra sign up, things like that. So we're glad that you're both still, honoring those things and moving forward. And hopefully you pick up a few more races along the way, because they are, from my experience, what you've run, excellent. I didn't even fill out the complaint card. Yeah. Well, maybe rocky. Laurel Highlands a bit too rocky, maybe.
Yeah, there's a few too many rocks. Need to do something about that.
A little windy, straighten that out,
Yeah, if you two could just have a rock cleanup day for me.
Laurel was actually the first trail race I ever did. I did the relay back in 2011 maybe, or 2012, and had just kind of a classic introduction to it. I did the first leg, so I did the first 19. I mean, yeah, first you're climbing for 8 miles out of there, and just getting out of Ohio pile. And I just remember this very distinct moment where I realized I liked it and hated it at the same time, which I think is the contrast of ultra running at the end of the day. But I saw the sun come up. There was this gorgeous sunrise. I saw it peak up, and I looked up for a split second and just caught a stump, just kicked it as hard as I could. Just no chance of rolling out of it, just pancaked down, fell on the ground, wiped myself off, felt all hardcore and just kept on going. But it was it was a good introduction of trail running.
Yeah, I was left bloody and beaten after last year's 50K. It's tough for sure.
Yeah, I saw you at the finish. That was looked pretty worn on that one.
Yeah. It was a rough day out there. Jim, are you also a trail runner?
I used to be. COVID got me pretty bad.
Okay.
And so since COVID got me back in 2020, I have not been able to put down miles.
Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that.
It's okay. It's okay. You start to figure out what life looks like after that. And it's all right. I still play in the woods on the regular, but I can't lay down miles like I used to.
That's probably the most important thing, is at least that you get to play in the woods. That's pretty much why I'm involved in this community, is just get out and reason to play in the woods. So I'm definitely sorry to hear that, but hey, glad you're still involved and out there playing in the woods. Now, you have all these races, and I don't want to get into like the overall logistics of you do it, but just like an individual race, how does your year look? I guess we can use Laurel Highlands for this example, because I'm familiar with it. What is like the first stage of planning? Because I'm sure there's a lot that goes into this. It's not easy. You have to get volunteers, stock aid stations. Fortunately, you guys don't have to design the course because it's follow the yellow marks. That's I pretty good, because I know a couple other RDs I know that's kind of got to map out the course and stuff, but that's pretty well done for you. So what, like logistically, how does your year look? Does it kick off? Can you take us through that process a little bit?
Can I ask you a question first?
Absolutely.
Are you looking to put a race on anytime soon? Because you sound a lot like, a racer that walked up to me and wants to put their own race on. I'm giving some trade secrets. Yeah. You did say that earlier. You did say that.
Come on, Casey. Again, you already have one.
Well,
you are an RD.
I am an RD of the Highland Square Beer Mile.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. When's that happen? I think I have that on the calendar.
4th of July. Very stringent to get into.
I was going to say it's exclusive. Sounds pretty exclusive.
It's harder than Western states. I mean, it's really, really difficult.
We do give away platinum passes. Maybe this year I'll make Laurel Highlands one of the platinum pass races. None of the platinum passes showed up last year though, so it's not going real well. But yeah, absolutely. Other than my beer mile, I mean, I don't want to say who they were, but I had people complaining about possible cheating, and I just kind of looked at them. I was like,
that's kind of the vibe of a beer mile, is it not? I mean, you're going into it.
Someone may or may not have used their child to lodge the complaint against another runner.
Got it. So it's passive aggressive complaint system.
Did you get the survey?
I did not fill out the survey. I don't send out a survey. which that'd be a good tip for you.
Let them come to you. Just let them come to you.
Yeah, Jim and Dan, don't send out a survey.
Got it. Always, there it is. There's the feedback we were looking for.
Yeah, and anytime there's a question, it's just that's what I felt like doing. I don't know. You're asking the wrong person. You're the race director. Listen, we're gonna run up and down this street 4 times and drink 4 beers. So
there it is, course mapped. Yeah. So to answer your question, I think there's a few different tiers. I mean, obviously, the partnership with the land, whoever's managing the land, right? So in this case, it's DCNR. That's always got to be the front runner. I've seen lots of organizations throw out ticket sales way before having agreements with landowners and venues, and it's always a risky business, you know.
And real quick, you two have a very unique relationship with the landowner because is it a park that the majority of the race runs through, plus 7 Springs?
It's managed by Department of Conservation and Natural Resources of Pennsylvania, and so that's who holds the overall thing. So they're awesome. They have just been amazing to work with. So as we talked about, like taking over the reins of an organization like a race like this is sometimes there's even more apprehension from groups like that have been working with someone else for so long. Could have even been a moment where they might have said, well, we're kind of done now, so because the agreement ran out or something. And they've been happy. I think we walked in the door and within the first year they extended our special events agreement another decade or something, which is awesome and really good and is rare, I think, in this world for somebody to be that confident and excited to in partnership to do that. So that's cool.
And that really speaks to the relationship that the previous race directors had.
Yeah.
Like there was so much trust built over the years. And the introductions, when they were made, like there was trust already inherent in our relationship.
Yeah, that's super important. You guys were going to put on a quality event and things would be taken care of properly.
Yeah. And so first year events are always tricky. You have to establish that and build it. And then after that, it's really just, communicating with anyone who's been involved in the past and making sure your usual suspects are all involved and excited to be out there again. In case of Laurel Highlands, it is like dozens and dozens of volunteers that were around a long time before us. So we really just stepped in to organize all of what was already happening, and these are people who store aid stations in their houses and garages and sheds year long just to come back and set it up for a day, and go out and pick up all the supplies for their aid station and give it that flair. So that's pretty cool. So getting in touch with those people and then just kind of as it gets closer and closer, starting to really dial in on all the details and thinking about the things you can switch up and put some flares on, whether it's the premiums you're passing out to people, those kind of things. So it's a little bit of a balance of, like we talked about at the beginning, maintaining the things that work really well, what people are expecting, and then being able to fine tune those logistics and perks, I guess, racer premiums and things that people really enjoy as well. I can't tell you how many people this past weekend at Suffern walked up to the table and saw a sticker and like, this is why I'm here. So it's like you're notching that thing and you're like, okay, got it. Every race has to have a sticker now.
Yeah, I mean, I still use your coaster, the Laurel Highlands coaster, all the time. Use it probably every day, and it's stuff like that I really like. I don't, metal, whatever. I'm just gonna toss it somewhere. But yeah, when a race gives me something like that, whether it's a coffee mug or a coaster, that's something I really do appreciate. Is my favorite, or t-shirt. I do have the Laurel Highlands t-shirt. T-shirts great for everything. I mean,
yeah, fair.
I love the Laurel t-shirts. They're some of my favorite.
We're just dealing with t-shirts today.
Sweet. Whatever fabric you used last year, always use that because that's my favorite. Yeah, I don't know if it costs more or if it costs less, but that's the one I like. I wish I knew what it was.
See, I like the one 3 years ago. I want you guys to use that one. That was my favorite.
This is why I'm not a racer.
This is why we don't put out surveys.
Yeah.
Playing it safe.
Yeah. You have 16 different recommendations for the t-shirt.
That's right.
Which is probably pretty accurate of what would happen. The course. I know part of the course goes through Seven Springs Resort, which is owned by a company I'm not going to mention the company, but have you had any issues with them and the race?
No, not at all. We immediately on some of the times in the past few years that have gotten a little heated, we reached out to our connections at in DCNR and who we hold the permit with, and just kind of gave them a heads up, made sure they were aware of it, talked through if they were concerned at all about it, and they weren't. They I don't know if this is exactly the right words. They essentially have priority on the domain for the trail that goes through to a certain extent. There's really not much there that a ski mountain can do to it's such a small portion of the course as well. But yeah, we haven't had any negative impact or interactions or anything. So that's good.
Bob Nutting, when he owned it, he didn't have like a little toll booth at the top there, I imagine, huh?
Yeah, it's possible. I don't know. Maybe they rerouted it for a reason. I don't know.
Yeah, I remember that was, yeah, he sold it off a few years ago, Bob Nutting.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh Pirates owner is what we're talking about, notoriously cheap. I'm a big Pirates fan, not a big Bob Nutting fan. So glad that you haven't had any issues with that, because that was kind of one thing I was a little bit worried about, of can always affect a race. Yeah, you have to have a course to run it on, and if there's some outside influence on it. But that's good to hear. Also, has to be the only race that goes over a major interstate that I've seen. Well, Turnpike.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's just 2 years in there where it got rerouted because of the rebuilding of the pedestrian bridge. But yeah, now it's great. It's a fun thing to do for sure. You pop out of the woods. It's a unique feeling, right? It's a really cool part of the course for sure.
Yeah, I've yet to run the 70. I think I remembered it about mile 25 why I didn't sign up for the 70 last year. I was like, yeah, this race is a little bit tougher than I remember. I don't remember it being this rocky. So yeah, maybe next year I'll do the 70. We'll see what we got planned. But so you got the course, you've got the pre-race, you've got the t-shirts. We're getting that done in October. Is it for the t-shirts you're looking for, Jim? Is that for Laurel Highlands, or is it another event you have?
Well, we have the Fall Classic coming up, so we want to make sure that everything's dialed in here in the next couple of weeks. We got our shirts coming in.
Plug the Fall Classic. It's the Laurel Highlands 50K, ran backwards on the course, so mile 31 to 0. A little bit different. I don't know, Rob. You think it's more challenging backwards than forwards? I think it is.
I don't know.
It's a little less vert. It's not much though.
It's a long descent.
That is a long descent at mile 23. Yeah, I think it might be tougher in reverse than.
Yeah, I think it's tough.
You're gonna have a climb at 25 too. You're gonna have a nice climb, a sneaky climb.
Oh yeah, that's pretty steep too. The backside, yeah. There's a little bit different. When I do go out to gate date, the coming back is a little bit faster, but that's after 7.5 miles, not 23 miles. So a little bit different, but very cool. How did you two come up with that idea? It seems pretty simple. We're just going to run the course backwards.
Right. Well, so we start in Ohiopyle, and then you finish in the middle of the woods, Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
Right. There's something about this idea of finishing in Ohiopyle. You're finishing in town. You're finishing in this area where people can congregate and just be for a long period of time, grab a beer at the pub. So I think that's something that was really attractive to us, was that idea of this almost festival finish line in this whitewater rafting town. It just made sense, right?
100%. I mean, it seems so obvious when you say it, but yeah, that's really what I want. I don't want to hop in a car and drive 40 minutes back to town. So yeah, I definitely want to try this race. But finishing downtown Ohiopyle with all the amenities there, the bar, the good food. Yeah, I'm excited. We got to do it, Casey.
Yeah. Is there a relay for?
Not this year.
Not this year? Okay. And does it finish at the Falls pub? Does it finish at the pub?
It does. They haven't quite agreed to let the line actually be in the pub, but we're gonna get it somewhere close. Right at the bar.
That would be perfect.
Yeah, where we'll have the kind of the festival little area, finish line area, and food is going to be just right across the street from the pub, and there are pubs involved. They're going to be catering, so it's going to be a good time for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. They have great food there. It's one of the reasons I go. I mean, other than it's challenging, but go out to run, gate to 8 is you start the pub and you end at the pub and you just walk right in afterwards. And hey, I'm just gonna eat some quesadillas and have a couple beers and
Right.
really.
Have you seen the tap handle yet?
I don't believe I have because it wasn't there.
Okay. I don't know. It's on rotation. It's the backup handle. So it's the it's the obelisk. It's the trophy for the 70 mile of wood, and we turned it into a tap handle and passed it off to the pub. So they usually put it on rotation when something's there's either an empty tap or they're bringing something that didn't have a handle with it. So it's pretty cool to see.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Dave bought in and explain real quick what the significance of that is, because people aren't going to be familiar of why that is the trophy of the race. And I was told,
Yeah.
I'll let you explain it first. And I was told there's something you're supposed to do that I didn't do. So
Depends who you ask, but yes. Yeah, it's every mile of the trail is marked with a concrete obelisk. It's got the just in the middle of the woods, and you're cruising along, and there it is each mile. So it's a pretty cool. Some people would say encouraging. Some people would say vicious reminder of your elapsed distance while you're running down the trail. But yeah, it's pretty cool. And the new trophies now are made by Jim's dad, which is awesome. He's a master woodworker, so that's been a really cool way to bring in some people around us as well. So
sweet. Yeah, that's just another cool thing about the race. And Mariana Grudziak, former guest of the show, informed me during the 50K that you're actually supposed to touch every obelisk as you run by it. I did not know that, which is probably why I face planted it.
yeah,
23.
yeah, some bad juju.
So
man.
when I started on the trail, let's see, back in 2000, I was leading backpacking trips on the trail. And I was hiking, with trekking poles and a big, 50, 60 pound pack. And every single time I would pass a mile marker, I would use my trekking pole to, tink, just touch the mile marker. And I can still hear that sound every single time I pass a mile marker. Just little tink,
Yeah, I didn't tink enough, apparently. I got that juju. I've learned my lesson.
Yeah, late in the race, it takes a little bit of extra love to bend the knee just a little more to reach down. Some of them are actually fairly easy to get at. They're in a good spot on the trail. Some take a little bit of a little work for sure.
Yeah, there's a couple that you gotta maneuver a little bit and get to, but yeah, well worth doing that. Brings you good juju out on the trail for sure. So yeah, make sure when you're out there running gate to 8, whatever you're doing on the Laurel Highlands Trail, you tink the obelisk, the concrete obelisk. So another big thing, and I've always kind of been curious of how you handle this for an ultra, that you like the distance, because you're covering, it's a point to point. It's not a looped race. There's not just, an aid station that you need to have out on the other side of the ridge or whatever. You have aid stations for 70 miles. What does the organization of that look like? Just the aid stations. How do you logistically handle all that? Because it seems to me, who's someone in planning and finding solutions, that would be probably the toughest thing to do in a race like that.
Yeah, I can start, Jim. It's a ton of communication. Cell service isn't great in a lot of these places. Radio service isn't great over that distance, and so it's really just that communication ahead of time. Sets you up really well for race day. So we have aid station captains. I think we currently have 6 of our 8 spots that are full, and have been an aid station captain for years and years. We've brought in a couple new people since some of the older captains retired, if you will. But it's really just making sure they're there when they need to be there. They're always there early. Doesn't matter. And then just making sure that, one of the interesting things, we've grown in size a little bit in the last couple of years. We've been able to allow a handful more people on the trail, and that brings with it its own challenges as far as parking and space and lots and things like that. So it's just keeping an eye on those things as you grow a little bit. But yeah, it's a lot. I mean, it's everybody having all their stuff and being prepped and ready to roll to your own location on race morning. There's no morning meeting because people are going to be an hour and a half, 2 hours away from each other at any given point during the day. And then it's just kind of like we're establishing chase vehicles that are coming up behind for drop bags and DNF racers. We're establishing people out in front that are double checking timing. And so it's a constant, leapfrog, I would say, is actually a good word for it throughout the day.
And we stepped into a race where people were already so excited about this race. People were already bought in. There were people invested in these aid stations for years and years and years. There was a husband and wife that just kept showing up for years and years. There's a cross-country coach who brings his cross-country team out to run an aid station. Now, granted, he's run the Laurel Ultra. He's won the Laurel Ultra, so he's invested. But he's bringing these college kids out, sharing with the next generation of runners, what it looks like to support other racers out in the middle of the woods, Pennsylvania. It's amazing.
That's really cool that you have and he's a college coach.
Yeah.
St. Vincent? Is he St. Vincent's?
St. Vincent. Yep, exactly.
There's some local legend with Andy as well that he holds the fastest time from gate to 19 also during a race. So I don't know. It's something insane, like just over 2 hours or something. It's absolutely wild. But it's fun. It's fun to have those people around for sure. And to sit. We could probably do a whole nother episode on just the back end stories about the race, that we've picked up on, that we've learned just over the last 5 years are really cool.
Yeah, the legend and the lore. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Because that alone right there is such a cool story. You're essentially exposing the next group, which cross-country runners are, what we would like to see go into ultras. You're essentially exposing the next group to this sport. How long has he been an aid station captain?
At least probably a decade, if not more. But yeah, I mean, he's been running the race for a lot longer than that as well, on the relay and individually. But
where is his aid station?
19, aid station 2.
Okay.
For the 70 and for both.
Right next to the old cemetery.
So we got the aid station. I didn't even think about like course sweeping, because that's a big deal. I do my best because we have a bunch. I live right next to the national park, and we do have a bunch of races. And I go out there and I'll pick stuff up after a race comes through. Like we just had the marathon go through our towpath, which is like a rails to trail type trail. And there was goo packets that I picked up. I try and do my best to help, but that's something very important to the cause, correct? Dan and Jim?
Yeah, it's twofold. It's the logistics and the people, as far as like the actual aid stations themselves and drop bags and DNF racers. And then there's actual sweeping of the trail, literally, and making sure that everything's picked up and the last racers have made it all the way off the trail and everybody's safe. Tim Hewitt, one of our past race directors, he has swept, I think, every year since we've been race directing, which is awesome. He's been one of our sweepers for the 70 every year. And mile 39, for those of you who have done the 70 and come across that's been Rick Freeman, one of the other past co-race directors. He's been running that aid station for the past 5 years. So, and then sweeping to the finish often. So it's been fun. It's been fun to have them involved. Yeah, people are pretty awesome. We definitely find a handful of trash, but I feel like the majority of the stuff we found on the trail was probably already there before event weekend. It's often, water bottles and things like that, even more than gel tabs and things like that. So it's been pretty great on all of our races. Yeah,
and I know the local RDs, they do their best to clean it up, and it might not even be from the race when I see it. So, but I try and help out as best I can.
Yeah, I think most of the time there's trash left by mistake. I mean, racers do care. They don't want to drop anything. I know, some of the runs I've had, you have that goo packet that's in your pocket, the used one, and then you reach down and it's not there. And then you stop and you're looking for it. You're like, oh no.
And Rob, that's exactly why I do it, because I'm sure that I've accidentally dropped stuff before. Like, did not mean to, didn't see it come out. Like, it just happens. Like, I know. So it's not a big deal. But course sweeping, another logistical thing that you have to think about, go through and provide the service of, making sure. I'm sure you have some stories of picking people up, because I live a mile from 2 100-mile races. I have stories of picking people up, lost a little bit, wandering.
Yeah, a whole nother podcast of traumatic race events, of race stories of things that happen on the
Right.
backside of the of the setup.
Yeah, you found them where?
Yeah, we have a cornfield locally that's a popular gathering spot for the lost wanderers. So
There is a moment of like of release when you are able to, like, especially on a marked course, or let's say a looped course where the racers get through and they show back up at the aid station, after the first loop, and you're just kind of like, all right, we're good, like everything's working as planned.
yeah,
There's just always pilot error. I mean, always, no matter what you do. We've run tests in the woods where, you have somebody that's a spot where we're getting reports that people are taking a wrong turn, and we'll send somebody out to check the marking, and they will set it up, and they'll just watch it. They'll hide in the woods, and most people make the right thing, and then they'll step out next to the arrow, and immediately when people see somebody, they're like, "Which way do I go?" And they just like they they turn the brain off, and so it's really interesting to watch people's the process in those moments, or just watching somebody. It's always, I feel like, I would say 90% of the time it's groups of people or pairs of people that get lost because they're chit chatting and I've done it. You're just like
yep.
talking and you just right through it. You're always on like a downhill, nice gravel or something. It's a single track uphill turn off, and you just so.
I was just gonna say it's usually monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah.
You're just kind of, well, and I've been the leader of that before, where I've just,
That's right.
yeah. So I can't throw a stone at that glass house, but yeah, it's part of it's part of the game though. It's part of the, you just maybe have to send out a reconnaissance team to track someone down in the forest of Pennsylvania.
What I want to know is, are there any newbies that first climb at Laurel that have changed their mind and they're just hanging out and they want to come back down? Does that ever happen?
We try really hard to let people know to pace themselves on that first climb. And so that's a really important aid station. When people hit mile 11, they're shedding layers. They are just completely boggled of what they're experiencing. you know, uh, for a lot of people, it's their first ultra, and that's a heck of a climb for your first time in the woods. But we try and tell them.
I see that more in triathlons, that people hit the water and get about 20 feet out and they're like, nope, and they turn around and come back. But we honestly haven't had it much in the woods. And most of the time when people point a direction on the trail, they go as far as they can until they can't go anymore.
Yeah, your race in particular, maybe it's because I'm also with, I'm with relays and how I just kind of, I hobby jog out of there. I'm definitely not going to hurt myself in the first 10 miles of any race. But the carnage I see on top of that first hill is legendary. Grant Johnson and I were kind of near each other, and we saw some just spectacular explosions on top of that first and second climb last year. So
yeah, it would need to be a part of the documentary, that's for sure. Just somebody post it up right there.
Yeah, I mean, be a good action spot, good spot for the camera for sure. So yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing how the backwards down that first climb goes, because yeah, that's when we were out there with Will Walmsley, also frequent, sometimes co-host, sometimes guest of the show. I was like, I think it was right when you had just announced that you were going to do it backwards, or maybe you told us something. Somehow I knew it, and I was like, Will, what do you think about going down this hill after 29 miles or whatever? It's gonna be might need a safety harness out there.
Well, just wait for the out and back when it's the full 140 from Ohio Pile to Ohio Pile.
Oh, is that a
I am just down the road.
Do we have an announcement here? Do we have an announcement?
So here's the I got you, Jim. I got you.
This is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, the official announcement is that the Fall Classic is meant to be a unique experience on the Laurel Highlands Trail every fall. So starting off the 50K really made sense. It was kind of just a fairly easy one to plug in. The distance is there, the parking lots are there, the start, so it made sense and it was very attainable. It was also, it was easy for the park to hear the idea and extend themselves a little further than what they've done for the past 45 years. So that was the initial pitch to them. But the overall view of the Fall Classic is to make it a unique opportunity, because we're not changing the spring, right? It's going to be the 50K and it's going to be the 70 mile. And it's going to be the relays for as long as we can do it. But the fall would be really cool to start looking at some creative options on the trail. So there's maybe we should have a survey for that on how many different ideas we can pull together on that trail and what we can do with it. So see your wheels spinning.
That'd be awesome. That'd be so cool.
Yeah, there definitely has been lots of requests specifically for the 140. So.
Really, people have. That's whew.
Yep.
Man, that'd be. I don't know. That's a little bit.
Yeah, you want to talk about mile 136 when you get to Bidwell Road and you're headed back into Ohio Pile. Then that last descent is going to be a whole different thing.
Right.
It's not 29, it's 138.
Rob, we got an exclusive.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm just processing it in my head right now. I'm like,
Right.
wait,
Yeah. Chew
so
on it a little.
I got to go back and go down that hill till my legs are toast.
Gate to 70, I think it's called, right?
Yeah, gate to 70. Just quick gate to 70 and back. That's
Quick gate to 70.
It rolls off the tongue.
yeah. That would be awesome. That'd be so. Yeah, it'd be a crazy race, and it'd be really cool to see. I will volunteer for that race. I will not be running that.
Sounds
race.
great. It's also going to be an ultra in its own right, volunteering for that.
Yeah, hopefully anyone that's listening to this, if you want to go experience an awesome ultra this fall, maybe got injured or something, could do what your A race was, definitely check out the Fall Classic at Ohio. Well, I guess it ends at Ohio Pile, but the Laurel Highlands Trail. I'm going to be in Florida, unfortunately, because I would really like to see it. I definitely wasn't going to run it this year. I can't, but I would have liked to have been a part of it. But next year, I'm definitely going to put it on things to do.
We could bring in a We Views live survey at the finish line at some point, just like right on site. Hobby jogger live interviews.
Yeah, I think we can make that. We want to do a live show, Rob, and we need to figure out how to do it, I think, don't we? Is that what we're working on? The audio or something?
Yeah, we need to. We've got time. We'll make Laurel the first one.
The spring or the fall?
Whichever one they'll let us do it at.
Sounds like another exclusive just got dropped. That was it.
Yeah. There's a couple characters I'd like to talk to out there for sure.
Well, when you say it on the podcast, it's written in blood, so now we have to do it.
Thanks again so much for your time here at the Hobby Jogger. We certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, well, you can find more information on Instagram at Laurel Ultra, or also on our website at redpointproductions.com. And it will be this year will be on October 19th.
That was fun. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Hobby Jogger. We hope you've enjoyed our conversation today. And if you liked what you heard, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support keeps us moving forward. Until next time, keep those feet moving and enjoy the mile.